be treated like a trespasser on White House grounds. They just escort him off. So
On January,
And on that note, I will say that it's 6:01, so why don't we get started? So many of you may have noticed looking around at the participant list tonight that Malcolm, the chair of the FDSR committee, is not with us. Don't worry, he has not resigned from the board, but he has had some medical issues pop up where he has decided that his best course of action, most responsible course of action, would be to step down as committee chair. We reached out to Narendra, who will fill out the rest of the term for this year. He graciously agreed that that was going to be helpful for everybody. So we'll just get through tonight and make sure that we all know what we're about, and we'll all wish Malcolm a speedy recovery, I'm sure. So Narendra, not to put you on the spot, but I did reach out to you like 6:30 this morning, so you've had a little bit of time out there, just a little bit. Do you have any opening words that you want to start with tonight before we get rolling?
yeah, I'll do that. This is Narendra Malik. Welcome to the Facility Disposition and Site Remediation Committee meeting. And it used to be chaired by Malcolm Phillips. Unfortunately, he is sick and he has decided to step down. And as James said, about 6:30 in the morning, I got an email and I accepted it because the work must go on. And we have a beautiful presentation. Teresa Eddy of DOE, she made it. And let's, James, proceed from there.
Yeah, so while just kind of interesting bit of trivia, last week marked my 10-year anniversary at the site, and today marks my 10-year anniversary of hearing the ACER presentations from Teresa Eddy. So it was really kind of interesting to me to sit in the background while this one was being recorded, because I've been paying attention to this one for a while. We did have one question come in that I know of in advance. So, Teresa, I believe you're on. Do you want to start with that one?
Yes, sure. And I've been here 21 years, and it's been about 10 years since I've done this presentation. So it was kind of interesting to get back up there and do it again 10 years later. So, and just to let you know, our project manager, Karen Vangelis, who normally does this presentation, she retired during the year, and we have a new project manager, Greta Fanning, and she's taken on the completion of the 2019 ACER and publication of it. She did a great job. So we did have some turnover in the year, along with all the other challenges of, COVID-19, but we made it. So the questions, were you going to read them, or did you want me to go through them? It was regarding the ISO 14001 certification. The question is that the site was reported to be in compliance with the ISO 14001 environmental management standard. Was this determined through self-certification or through an audit performed by an outside independent assessor? There was a follow-up question: how often is the ISO 14001 system reviewed? So the way it works is DOE allows the organizations to either confirm or certify to the standard. The M&O contractor, which is SRS and covers SRR, conforms to the standard. And the last audit was conducted in March of 2018. The audit is performed every 3 years, and the next one will be performed in fiscal year 21 by October 1. The audit is performed by a third party outside of the control of the scope of the EMS. So it was performed by Centera and Floor Corporate Office. On top of all that, SRNS performs an annual self-assessment of various parts of the program. Centera is the security contractor, and they register or certify to the standard and they performed a formal audit in January of 2018, and that was conducted by NSF International Registrations. Their certificate was issued on January 19th of 2018, and the next audit will be performed during fiscal year 21. And they also conduct an annual review of their EMS by a third party, typically from another site. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of how it is for the site. So the M&O contractor conforms to the standard, and Centera is certified to the standard.
Okay. Heather, we dropped this since we've gotten this one covered. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes.
I'll share with you then,
Mr.
Brenda.
Nevin. I have plenty of questions. I'm sorry I never send them in writing in advance, but I do it on the moment. Teresa, thank you very much for preparing a wonderful AES report. We talked about ISO 14001. How many SRS employees are certified to perform ISO 14001 audits? Did she hear me?
Well, I don't know if I have the answer to that, but I do have Montse Ningwan on the line, so I don't know if she wanted to speak to that, because she's the DOE lead for EMS.
Well, if you don't have an answer, you can get it later on, because I know in
Okay.
2000, it started getting some people certified for ISO 14001 at the site. And some of them were conducting, then I don't know where it got lost. So I'm not familiar with that. But in 2000 it started. I'd like to know how many SRS employees are certified to perform this audit.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
They may be going to perform the audit on other sites, or they may be doing self-assessments.
Yeah, Ted Millings was the lead for the chapter, and I didn't have the leads join me on the meeting tonight. It's kind of why I was hoping to get the questions ahead of time so I could pull them in if I needed to, but that's good. I can get the response, get back to you on that.
I have another question. You mentioned about recycling of non-hazardous materials. What kind of these materials are? Teresa?
I'm not sure where you're talking about. What slide are you talking about?
Oh, I didn't write the slide. It's recycling of non-hazardous wastes.
So something I want to remind everybody while we're looking that up is I really want to make sure that we're focusing our questions on not necessarily the content, because we're not necessarily talking programs. We're talking about the ACER itself, that summary, its usability for the public. Are they able to catch on? Do you think that they need to do some work? We need to drive into that direction a little bit more if we can.
Yeah, and honestly, I would prefer to just follow up with my formal responses after I get with the SMEs. I'm the most comfortable with that. Because this is more of a high-level presentation. I wasn't prepared to get into all the nitty-gritty details of the chapters.
So if there are some specific questions about programs, that's great. Let's send them in. That way we can get you the responses. We'll send them out to the whole board. But let's try to focus, like I was talking about, on the ACER and its usability for the general public. How does that summary function? Hopefully you all read it before tonight and had, or at least flipped through it, had a chance to do that.
I think, James, it was very well presented. I'm very happy about that because it covered areas which environment is concerned, and especially reporting the self non-compliance for NEPA, which not NEPA, NPDES. And luckily, the site was not fined because it was self-reported non-compliance. and I'm very happy about that. And I would like to know, you may not have this question answered to us. Do you do anything with the reporting of mercury as required by community right to know?
Sir, what was the question again? Would you repeat it? The reporting of mercury, what did you say?
As required per community right to know regulation?
Does the community have the right to know?
No, community right to know is a federal regulation. I think it's 40 CFR 303 or 304.
I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
I'll send the question to James.
I'm just, can someone else repeat what he's asking, please?
Yeah, it's about the reporting on mercury according to the community's right to know.
Okay, so
Regulations.
I can talk to the notice of violation. I mean, we had two H16 outfall samples that were not reported within the 28-day hold time that's specified by the laboratory, and I will point out that there was a process control sample within the facility that was that's normally performed prior to discharge to the outfall. So the process control samples were fine, and we've not had any historical issues at this outfall. And like I said, there were no adverse environmental impacts from this event, but we did notify verbally South Carolina DHEC through our routine reporting, and also through the routine discharge monitoring report. So we did do a fact-finding meeting, and improvements have been implemented or are still in the process of being implemented with procedure changes and all to make sure this didn't happen again.
Okay.
So that's the rundown on the mercury and the requirements for us to report to South Carolina DHEC.
Okay. So how about this? Any other questions from other members of the board? Let's go around the room a little bit, as it were.
I have a question, James. This is Greg.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Teresa. Your publication you put together is beautiful, and it's got a lot of nice information in it. I'm wondering, how would you characterize the ACER? I tend to think of, would you characterize it more as something like that is self-assessment for SRS, or is it something that is more sort of like a self-promotion marketing piece?
It's kind of a combination of both, if you would say that. The marketing piece would be our summary report. It's more basically, it's still reporting the facts. We try to be open and honest to the public. The full technical report includes, you know, all the information, and if you go to the website, you can pull in the more technical links. And we're required to provide and be open and honest and provide all that information to the public. So, in the presentation, I talked about that. You know, we try to reach the wide audience, but there is a little marketing piece, I guess you'd say, too, with the summary report. But it's the purpose of that, though, is to make sure we can get the message out in a way that the public can comprehend. Because the way it used to be, the summary report years ago, it would just be a rehashing of the technical report, and people just didn't read it. So we were trying to make it a way that we could reach the whole audience and community. So it's really kind of a combination of both, I guess you would say, the way it is now, because it's utilized in various fashions as far as, you know, technically reaching the technical audience at the same time. The summary pamphlets, what we a lot of times give in tours, and we give to the community when we're trying to highlight the site and the accomplishments, but also provide the quick summary of what's included in the full report.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think what initially brought my attention to this was you talked about how the ACER, covers a lot of information and focuses on accomplishments, but I didn't see much about failures in particular. I know as somebody who writes for scientific publication, when I write something, oftentimes or actually always have to write about limitations of what my study or whatever it is I'm working on, what limitations it has. And I think there's a lot of focus on accomplishments, but given how complicated what goes on out there, I can't imagine. It seems to me like there are probably a lot of things that are frustrating and didn't turn out the way people wanted. And I did actually look through the full report. I must admit I didn't read it word for word, and I didn't go to all the links. But I didn't see a lot of self-assessment or self-reflection, I guess I would say.
Okay.
Teresa,
Go ahead.
sorry, this is Moxie Dengwan. I work with Department of Energy, and I'm the program, lead for the ACER. I can understand the comment, but I want to draw your attention to a few chapters where you can look for, activities through the year that we discuss things that, happened. I mean, what the ACER is really for is to document activities that happened for the calendar year previous to this year. So if you look in the compliance section, there are years where we have NOVs, 5 NOVs in different programs. The years we have none, the years we have 1. And so that is a documentation of what happened. Those notices of violation indicate that there was a problem. The state, identified the problem. Sometimes we self-identify. So there's various instances where things have gone wrong and we have fixed them and we address them with corrective actions. And we always include those in the compliance summary. That is in chapter 3. If you want to reread that, I think that's what Surinder was talking about with the Mercury NOV and the NPDES permit. So we do talk about those things. We do a lot of self-assessments. We have inspections, annual inspections. Some of them are biannual. And, for the most part, we don't have issues, which we're proud to say. And when we do, those are documented. If you look in our chapters 4 and 5, where we do monitoring per the permit and surveillance per the DOE order, every year we trend those numbers, concentration of contamination and stuff like that. So you can see where things go up and things go down, and you look at the dose assessment. So I wouldn't say that, this is a marketing piece, because there's very technical information in there, and it's not written to highlight just accomplishments or things that go right. You can look at the reports from year to year, and you'll see that things go up and things go down, and we have explanations why things happened. And, we've had explanations why some of our equipment, didn't work as well for our wildlife monitoring. We made improvements. So we do talk about, the activities as they happened. And I don't really think that it's written for us to market per se. Now the summary, as Teresa said, is written in a way that the public can get a high level overview without dealing with the nitty-gritty of the details, because the details can deter you from getting to the end, which is why we do the summary. But yeah, if you're interested in seeing, the year-to-year changes, there are certain chapters you can go to and look for compliance issues. You can look at, monitoring and the data, and that's where you can see how things are going. But we're proud to say that, for a site and an industrial complex that's very complicated, we don't have as many safety issues because, safety is a priority. So you won't see those kind of things, and it's an environmental report. So it's focused on providing the community and the stakeholders with, the impact or not to the environment based on operations.
And part of that being open and honest in the summary too, we do talk about remediation technologies, and up front when we talk about it, we do talk about the history and the fact that, previous operations at the site radionuclides and solvents, were seeped into the subsurface. So, I mean, it's not all just, we're wonderful. We're being open and honest, and we talk about, okay, there's been contamination that now we're working on cleaning up. And then at the beginning of the report, it talks about, I'm talking about the summary now, the history museum and a little bit of history about, and we try to be honest about that as well. So she's right, and we have had years in the past where we've had more than one notice of violation, but 2019 was just a good year for us, and part of that is because we do try to continuously improve and have corrective actions and fact findings and make improvements as we move along so it doesn't happen again. So I agree. I mean, it's more of a report, but trying to get the message out in a way that the community and the public will want to read it versus just a marketing tool or a technical document that nobody wants to read. So that's kind of how we use it in both ways.
Sure, I understand that, and I appreciate both of y'all's. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry, and I appreciate both y'all's responses. But let me ask you this: I'm looking at the full report, and I'm looking at the second chapter on page 1. I see a gray box standing out, and it says 2019 highlights. I guess for lack of a better term, I'm wondering where the box is that says 2019 lowlights.
Well, the highlights is just a quick summary of what's included in the chapter.
Well, it talks about all of the wonderful things that have been done in terms of reduction. Actually, I've spun away from it now, but I can go back to it. Let's see. It talks about pollution prevention and waste minimization. You recycled a bunch of stuff. Greenhouse gas reduction. Did a bunch of stuff. Exceeded goals. Transportation and fleet management. Exceeded things. Awards. SRS received Smart Business Recycling Award. That sort of stuff. All wonderful stuff. Again, I guess I'm missing. And by the way, it's okay. I think we just need to understand on the board how we think about this piece of work. Is this something that is basically a promotional piece, or is it a piece that reflects, I don't know, self-assessment, right? So it's okay as long as we're clear on what's happening. It's okay, but we just need to be clear on what's happening.
Okay, thank you. This is Motsi Dengwan again. And I appreciate that discussion because it is helpful for us to understand how you're reading this and what your take home or what your takeaway is. So we might have to do some thinking when we put this together. But like Teresa said, the highlights really was not just to document that we had glowing results, but really most of the information in all the chapters, unless it's data or unless it was an activity that happened in that year, most of it won't change because these are programs. Programs last for years. So when we highlight stuff in the beginning of each chapter, if that is what changed or that was what happened in that year. So that's what we're drawing your attention to, not necessarily just because it's glowing good news. In that same chapter, if you go back to 2018 or 2017 reports, you'll see highlights and they're all different. But for EMS, what we've done this year is if you go through the sustainability goals, you're going to see progress towards those goals and how we're matching up with those goals. And you're going to see some of those goals were ahead, some of them were behind, some of them were at risk of missing. So you just need to kind of go through the report and look past the highlights. That is the takeaway. We want you to know that we're doing, great work. We're doing our best. These are the things that we achieved for the year. And if you go through the rest of the chapter, you'll see, everything else that we're reporting or that, happened through that year. So it would help us if you go back through, take a look at the material, not just the highlights, and then ask us or let us know what you think, because this is helpful. We want to make sure that we're reaching everybody, but we want to make sure that people understand that this is not a marketing tool. This is not, we are required to document our activities. So we want to make sure we're doing that.
Okay, yes, this is Greg. Thank you. Thanks to both of y'all. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And like she said in table 2.1, matter of fact, this chapter was reorganized this year, and in that table, yeah, there's numerous of ones of the goals that are listed as at risk or not met. And the other thing to point out, like if you go to chapter 3 at the highlights, the first thing we have on there is about the notice of violation. So we may want to consider, and this is for moving forward, yeah, if there's another way we should title that, we could come up with, because it's really not highlights in a way that it's just the positive things. It's really just like a quick take-home conclusion of what's in the chapter, and then you go through the chapter to get more details. That's my last comment on that.
All right, folks, any more questions from the board? Can I give everybody a moment to unmute just in case? Going once. Going twice. All right. Teresa, Motzi, thank y'all both very much. We appreciate everything that y'all have done, putting this together and bringing this info tonight. Thank you.
James,
You're welcome.
thank you very much, Teresa. James, can we move to this recommendation number 367?
I was just about to suggest that we do that. Let's take a look at the response to 367. Heather, can you pull that one up for us? Let's all laugh briefly at Heather, whose son unplugged her router and kicked her off WebEx, and she got back on just in time for this. Everybody wave at Heather and her being back online.
You are so nice. Let's just talk about your dogs barking, okay?
Anytime. As soon as you get a chance. I know you're probably having to reset some stuff. So when you can get 367 pulled up, if you remember, this is the response, the DOE response to your stakeholder awareness recommendation. This is the one that asked for a new survey. Oh, that's 366. I know you know. I'm just pointing at somewhere up there. It's going to be 367. So this one is obviously still in progress. It's going to take a little bit longer to get everything through. But before we do that, is there any comments, questions about this response?
I think we're still on 366. We need to move to 367.
You're almost
Yeah.
there. There we go. That's it.
I think, James, this Narendra Malik, I'm very pleased with the response, unless somebody has any other comments on that.
From the board, are there any other questions or comments about this response? Greg, I know that you took the lead on this and wrote it, so I think that we're all kind of patiently waiting for you to.
Oh, is that what's going on? I'm sorry.
Kind of.
This is Greg. I, of course, I'm very pleased that at this response. Can I don't know who, can somebody kind of outline just very briefly sort of what the process is that they're going to go through? How are we going to do, or how are they going to do this?
So that's going to be a stellar question. And I'll be honest, Amy's like saddling up to answer. And so if she wants to take over, I will, or if she nods, I mean, okay. We're not really sure quite yet. And that's one of the things that we wanted to, we were hoping that you could hang on after tonight for a little while, because we're not sure about sample size and all that kind of fun stuff, and how we make sure that it's a valid study, but not a $200,000 study. You know, somewhere in there, we got to find where we can hit. Okay. So I'll be honest. If you guys want to wait until there's a more timely update of this one before you decide to take any action to close it, or if you decide that you're happy with this and you trust them to continue forward, I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to leave this open for a little while, or do you want to close it?
Now, this is Greg. I'd like to close it. I don't know if that's appropriate given I'm the one who wrote it, but I'm glad to move to close it if somebody else doesn't want to.
I don't think we necessarily need to take a vote on it. What I will ask is if anybody objects to closing it, if any of the board members online object to closing 367, I'm going to give you a moment to speak, say your piece. All right,
James,
hearing.
we've gone through this before. It doesn't do us any good or any bad not to close it.
I know, but I got to give you the option.
Yeah, I'm going back 2 years with our old nuclear materials chairman, who's a good friend of mine still. Remember, he wanted to leave one open just because he didn't like the response?
I do.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no reason not to close it. And at a full board, I would bring that up.
All right, so
Okay.
let's say that the committee has decided to close 367, pending any other objections. Hearing none. All right, so why don't we move over to 368 then, Heather? And this is that one that was the support for SREL. Yeah, the additional base funding to increase the stability of laboratory. This one was a partially accept. And you've had this one for a while, but this is our first good opportunity to talk about it. Any questions, comments,
I think
concerns?
I thought it was for the next meeting.
No, 360. No,
Not for this.
SREL is under this one. This one's for yours.
Okay.
Now, if you guys aren't ready to talk about this one yet, we can put this one on the back burner for a little while if you want to wait, and we can address it at the next committee meeting, whenever that will be.
This is Narendra Palak again. I don't think we'll have any changes to that. So we move on to close it. This is my suggestion.
Okay. Any objections from the board? All right, seeing none, we'll put these both on the agenda to close for the full board meeting, 367 and 368. And that, I believe, does it for the FDSR agenda for tonight. Are there any parting words that we need to go through? Narendra, anything, any comments that you need to make?
Well, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for who joined us for this meeting and the presenter especially. And we wish Malcolm once again best wishes for his health. And be safe for the holidays coming up in the next week. And make sure that take necessary precautions to not to be getting COVID-19. That's what I have. And if everybody's happy, then I'll say, let's close the meeting.
All right. But don't everybody hop off, because remember, we still have SLM to do. That one's the next committee meeting. So unless you're just not interested in SRNL, I hope you all stay on for a moment. I'm going to ask, as we get ready to transition into the Strategic and Legacy Management Committee, do we need to take 5 or are we good to keep going? What do you want to do, folks?
I'm good to go.
Do we have our presenters here?
Tony, are you on?
The reason I'm saying that the time was given for this meeting 7 to 8. So some board members may not be on board at this time.
Yeah, but we were transitioning from one to the next. I'm going to ask Tony, were you online? Have you made it in yet? All right.
I'll text him. It's Tony Polk.
Yeah, Tony
I'll
Paul.
text him and see if he can get on a little early. Hang on a sec.
All right. So why don't we do this? Let's take a good 5 minutes to give him a chance. Let's make it 10. We'll take 10 minutes to give him a chance to get in, and we will reconvene at 6:45. Okay, and we'll bring it back in for our strategic and legacy management. that WebEx will not allow us to do that unless that person's computer is unmuted, which can lead to unfortunate side effects. So,
Okay, I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, if I play music, you're gonna hear a 3-year-old in the background running around and screaming. So
Why is Tony doing
So
that?
what
6:46. I know we're a little early, but why don't we go ahead and get started and we'll bring it back in. Jim, this is your meeting. So do you have any opening words for the board before we get started?
Nothing specific, just to welcome everybody to the first Zoom meeting by the committee. And we've got a couple things to cover here, but we should be able to move this along pretty well.
All right. So, Heather, we got a question in advance, didn't we? All right, let's go ahead and put that on the screen. Tony, did you have a chance to look at that question that came in early for us? Oh, yeah, there were two of them. Tony? Did we lose him?
Tony, is your mic muted?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Can you unmute him?
Yeah, I was trying to. Hey, Tony, I think you're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
All right, James, I had to do this by phone.
That's
iPad's not working well, so.
That's fine. So those those questions that came in via email for you, have you had a chance to look at those?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Since I got discombobulated trying to reconnect, let me get back to it.
Okay. We'll give you just a
I think
second.
the first one, if I recall, really had to do with, is funding going to come to us the same way under a new contract from the missions on the site? The answer is yes. There'll be a little bit more paperwork involved from one contractor to another and establishment of service level agreements, between companies. But yes, all of that funding will still come to the laboratory, just more paperwork.
Tony, question for you. More paperwork, does that mean that you now have to treat EM and other activities as separate customers?
So so last week, let me see if I can explain this. Last week, some new guidance came out from headquarters regarding how to treat, how laboratories should treat work from customers, including EM. Our CFO is looking at it. I've not had time to look at it in detail. I would imagine it's going to work similarly to the way we did it for for other customers in the past. And really what it would involve is just a statement of work, an agreement between the two, and contractor approval to be able to make it happen. So maybe a little bit more than what it takes today, for example, within EM, but I don't anticipate that it's going to be difficult.
So again, if, as I understand you, this means you're probably acting more as an arm's length arrangement with EM as you have with other outside contract work.
To a great extent, and that is primarily based on the fact that it will be a separate contractor, which, there's always a little bit of arm's length between the two, between contractors, just as there is on site today. And agreements are made, as to services provided between each of them. And so some of those things that happen regularly will take place by way of service level agreements that'll be put in place, and those things will happen normally. And, let's just say that the new contractor decides they're going to use the site M&O's engineering design resources because they don't want to spend, dollars to keep those in place. There may be an SLA in place for specific work items that come out of the missions Most of those get identified at the very first of the year anyway, and dollars are provided. So, I don't anticipate a lot going back and forth. And we even can accommodate changes. So I expect at the beginning or prior to the beginning of each year, the missions will decide what it is they need to have delivered from the laboratory. The two will work together. The statement of work will be put in place. Contracting officer will say, everything's okay. Dollars will go through DOE's accounting systems to change hands, and everything will work.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So that second question, did you find it or you
Can I ask, hey, James, this is Dave Pavakis. Do you have time for a question on number one?
Sure, let's go through it.
Hey, Tony, and thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. I thought that from what I understood with this new standalone contract for SRNL, that you were going to be more like the other labs. And I know that, Lawrence Livermore and Los Alamos and Nevada, they all get direct appropriations. Is that not going to be the in the works for SRNL also?
It will not be for 21 or 22 because a lot of preliminary work's already gone into budgets, but it is something that EM is reconsidering for the FY23 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Because as it stands today, for 21 and 22, the plan is still to use site overhead structure to be able to fund operations and maintenance in the laboratory.
Okay. And the new contract is going to be in place, if I understood from your presentation, by the end of this calendar year, correct?
So that is the plan and the schedule, and we are working very hard to make that happen.
Thank you.
I anticipate it will happen in December.
All right, so that second question, do you need me to read it out for you, Tony, or do you have it?
No, I've got it. Yep.
Okay.
This has to do with the 4 core skills and the advanced manufacturing collaborative. So
Correct.
AMC will not deal with radioactive materials at all. Any of the work that would be done that includes chemical processing advancements will be done with non-radioactive surrogates to advance the process. And then if pilot scale testing is needed using radioactive materials, those activities could be brought on site.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Heather, can you drop this slide for us? Thanks. Folks, any questions about SRNL? Oh, words are hard today. And AMC? Was that really it?
Guys, yeah.
All right.
It is going to be exciting times moving forward for the laboratory. A lot that'll be going on relative to growth, I believe, over the next few years. I mean, we've seen it over the last 4 years, and I expect that to continue as we move into a separate and independent contract.
Hey, Tony, this is Dave Vavakis again. I do have a question on the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative. What happens if you get stuck with a continuing resolution for the rest of fiscal year 2021? Will that, I know you need another 25 million to complete the construction. How does that impact you for so far as the building of the AMC?
So it absolutely would impact us. For the DOE's requirements for construction of a facility like this require all the dollars to be available up front before we let a contract. And so we would have to have those dollars available. We're watching that closely because it would be impactful because those dollars while the program, it would be impactful because the dollars would not be available because they had not been planned and approved. Or appropriated is the better way to say it. So.
Okay.
And most of the time we are limited as well to dollars that were available in previous years when we're in a continuing resolution, either the lesser of the previous year or another figure that Congress would give us as a target.
When you say impactful, does that mean that construction might stop or has it?
It may be delayed. We've still got a lot of work that we can do on the project to get prepared for letting a contract, which was really not scheduled until the fourth quarter, I think it is, of FY21. And so we've still got a lot of project work to be done before that contract would be let. So we've got a lot of time to be able to work it out. But if there's a delay and we don't get funding and have a full year of a continuing resolution, it may be impactful. The other thing, and that, that's just the best way to say it. It would delay being able to let the contract, is what we understand.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tony, folks?
Hey, Tony, it's Gil. Any chance that that 3D model that you got printed up, or that you guys 3D printed of the actual building, could next time we actually are in person, any chance we can show that to the cab?
You send it to the cab. Yeah, we've got it up right now. It's on display at the university.
That's
what Sandra told me she was going to do with it. So,
yeah,
would you like to see
y'all? I got to see it the day out there, and it is cool, and the detail on it's amazing. I sent James. I think I sent you a picture of it. I mean, to see it, it's unreal. So, thank you for putting that together, Tony.
Yeah. Our guys in the lab 3D printed that thing for us based on the conceptual design that we had in place. So yeah, we'll figure out how we can maybe get that to a CAB meeting when folks can get back together. I've also got some cool pictures that I may be able to share that may be even, as illustrative as the 3D model. So you can't pull the top off and look in and see. Now, the other thing, Gil, that the laboratory was going to do, they've got this neat program that wasn't quite ready to be used when we had the display there, but it works with your iPad, and it actually, somehow they program the model in there, and when you look at the different places and point to it, it tells you what they are with the iPad. So that wasn't ready last time, but maybe next time we get it out, we can have that ready for us.
That is cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, seeing none. Tony, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. Look forward to updating you in the future as things proceed.
All right, thanks. So, Jim, that will close out. Unless there's any comments through the board, you want to move over to the 366 response?
Yeah, why don't we move on and see if we want to close this out?
Okay. So yeah, this is the response about military training activities.
My only comment on this is it looked like Zach had definitely gone through things and determined which organizations they still wanted to deal directly. So it looked to me like they pretty well had settled out exactly how they're going to manage this.
Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, so we'll do this like we did last time. I'm going to assume that you want to close it. I'm going to ask if anybody has any objections to closing this. If you do, let us know, and let's see what we need to do to make it happen, or why we might need to keep it open. Are there any comments, concerns? Anybody who wants to keep this open? Hearing none, then we'll put it on the agenda for the full board meeting, and we'll put it to a vote with the rest of the board for closing 366. Thank you, folks. That is the totality of our agenda for tonight. Jim, do you have any closing words?
No, other than stay safe. I think the best lines I heard is be positive and test negative.
Thank you. All right, so we can call this one adjourned. If anybody has any questions for us about cab operations, I'd be happy to stick on for a couple of minutes to answer anything. Otherwise, we'll see you all at the full board meeting.
Okay.
Were you going to get together with Greg on